You're about to hear a mythological story written by Amy Bearpaw Piper of Standing Rooted. This story has been published and all rights are reserved. Once upon a time, there was a tiny princess named Pearl. She was a very special little princess, just like all princesses are, because she was unique and one of a kind. There had never been another princess just like her, and the special sparkly star which spoke to her when she gazed out at the night sky assured her that there would never be anyone in all the world exactly like herself. Pearl was very proud of this and liked to proclaim it loudly, especially on some occasions when she felt a little insecure. That happened mostly when the folks around her did things better than she felt she could do them herself, and especially when everybody admired them for it. Now, Pearl's special star friend had explained to Pearl that if she ever felt lonely or needed some help, she could simply remember the night sky, and her body and mind would wake up and begin to hear the light exactly as it was designed to do. This would allow her to connect with the stars so she would know she was not alone, and she could receive help with the questions she wanted to ask. The star explained that all she had to do was just close her eyes and listen very deeply. At first, Pearl wasn't quite sure what this listening deeply thing could be. She remembered having listened carefully in her life, and she certainly remembered having listened to a lot of things she didn't especially want to hear. But this was a new kind of listening, and since her star friend was telling her about it, she thought it might be a nice thing. When she asked how she could learn to listen deeply, her star suggested that she might start by noticing what it was like when she sat on the castle turrets and gazed out at the night sky. Pearl remembered that at first she had felt very jumpy and nervous because it was so quiet out there and there were no distractions at all. Then she would find herself thinking about things that had happened that day, or things that might happen tomorrow, or things she felt should happen in the future. But when she remained still and just sort of watched this thinking float by, it was as if her mind and even her body were opening in some way. And then it seemed the stars just melted down inside of her, and they would begin to speak. Of course, now that she was thinking about it, stars didn't have mouths, and she didn't think they had spoken any of the languages she had learned at princess school. But yet somehow she did understand them. Yes, she realized, it does seem as if my star speaks through me more than speaking to me. Pearl remembered that when she was spending time with her star, she would hear calm, sure words in her mind, or see a picture in her head that explained things, or have a blazingly clear understanding of something that she hadn't understood at all just a moment before. Pearl thought this was quite surprising and a very mysterious thing, and she planned to ask the star about it later and learn more. But the years started to swirl by swiftly, and Pearl had so much to learn about being a princess and becoming a queen that she didn't always feel she had time to visit the turrets anymore. Sometimes she would see silvery starlight drifting through her window and so long to go upstairs and revel in it. But Pearl had begun to feel that what she was learning in the castle was more important and useful, and she began to wonder if what the star shared with her was really applicable in the real world. In fact, she had been told not to play childish games when she mentioned her nighttime companion to her father, the king, and her best friend, the Princess Athena, just rolled her eyes. Well, Pearl did not like to feel silly, so she began to go to bed and squeeze her eyes shut tight, pretending not to hear the beckoning whispers or see the opalescent glow that flowed softly into her bedroom window. After a while, her eyes began to attune to the more distinct and concrete objects around her. So the starlight fell more and more softly against her retina until she hardly saw it at all and rarely noticed it when she did. Gradually, Pearl forgot all about her special luminescent companion, and her life marched onward. Now, there are some people who think that being a princess is all about ermine fur mittens and cushiony purple thrones, but those are the people who have never been a princess themselves. Pearl discovered that there was a lot expected of her, and she didn't always understand how to please everyone. Pearl learned that a princess must be beautiful and shapely, yet was not allowed to be vain or preoccupied with herself. She must be a wise steward of the royal wealth, and yet be generous with the care of the land. She must grace the table as a gentle, compassionate, and proper lady, and still be ready to command her troops to fiercely protect the land. Somehow, it was necessary that she rule with grace, charm, and ruthless power. Everyone seemed to expect that being a princess, she would know just how to do these things naturally, all by herself. So Pearl got smart. She decided to weave a costume that would serve every occasion. Let's see, she mused. My costume must be very wise, like a golden lamp of wisdom, so no one will fool me at court. It has also to be sweet and nurturing, like a soft plush toy for my little prince. I will need it to be sexy and beautiful for the king, and so that bards will write ballads about me to honor our kingdom. But also aggressive and tough like a fierce bear to protect the kingdom and overthrow our enemies. Yet it can't be too threatening, or my court and king will run away. This is a very big task, Pearl thought with concern. So Pearl worked and worked, and when she was finished, her costume looked something like this. It looked like the picture that you see right in front of you now. Pearl did think it looked a little weird, but when she wore it, everybody thought she was fabulous, and nobody seemed to notice that she had actually disappeared underneath. And after all, it worked so well, she became a very successful queen. Still, the costume was terribly heavy, and she had to spend a lot of time repairing and updating it to suit new situations. Pearl found that she was becoming quite nervous and tired, almost as much as before she had the helpful costume. Her head hurt, she couldn't breathe very deeply, and every time she picked up her royal sun, she got stuck in a hideous pretzel position because she just couldn't move freely inside the cumbersome outfit. She even noticed that she had begun snapping at the king, forgetting to feed the dragons, and almost dropped the prince on his royal crown. But the competent costume always picked up the slack, apologizing graciously, whipping up a gourmet feast from leftovers for visiting royalty, and inventing polish that made the golden crown shine even more brightly than ever before. How could Pearl ever do without her astounding costume? Why, it was unthinkable. And after a while, she really didn't think about it anymore. She wore her costume all the time, even at night, and forgot it wasn't who she really was. She didn't remember that she was there underneath the costume at all. But the costume wasn't getting any lighter, and the king began to worry. He had also forgotten about the original Pearl, and that she was hidden inside the costume shell, which he rather liked if the truth were told. And he was so busy heroically trying to be a courageous, wise, fierce, and generous king himself that he was hidden inside his own costume and didn't remember he was wearing his either. Nevertheless, he did notice that his queen was becoming wan and pale, and that she seemed to be working hard just to breathe sometimes. So he sent her on a vacation holiday. Now, it's difficult for a royal person to travel without a large entourage, and a bevy of guards with spears and arrows is not really conducive to having a great deal of fun. So the king decided that Pearl might simply spend her time on the castle grounds, which were well protected on the borders. And then she could do just as she pleased. Well, it turns out that Pearl didn't know exactly what pleased her. She had forgotten who she really was and could only remember what people were supposed to do on holidays, rather than what she might actually enjoy. So she simply wandered about, listlessly looking at the plants and animals as they scampered around childishly playing and gathering food. She thought it looked like a lot of fun. Certainly more fun than she'd been having. One holiday evening, as she rambled aimlessly, Pearl noticed a cunning little rabbit nibbling on a grass blade that glittered with dewdrops. Something began to niggle at her, but she wasn't quite sure what it was. It was right there on the tip of her tongue, and it wanted to roll off into words, but the memory would just drift away just as she was about to speak. Pearl tried and tried to remember, but she was so tired, and really her neck was a little stiff, and she just thought it was hardly worth making such an enormous effort. So she stopped. She just stopped. She stopped thinking, and she stopped trying, and she just was. Was what, you might ask? And that would be an excellent question. But I can't really explain it any more than I already have. Pearl dropped off into just being for the first time in a very long time. Pearl felt her body moving, almost like she was watching herself walk in her sleep. She was dumbfounded as her body carried her up the castle stairs, spiraling round and round, until she found herself at the very top of the castle, where she hadn't been since she was a small princess. Now Pearl began to remember how she used to enjoy escaping to the castle top turrets, and she smiled. She sighed. She breathed into her heart and then outward into her whole body. She inhaled slowly, letting the air bathe through her pale, tense limbs. Pearl exhaled with a small, satisfied whisper of sound. She let all her thoughts and feelings melt onto the clear wind until her mind was empty and quiet. Suddenly, an unexpected noise caused Pearl to gasp and stiffen. Her eyes were wide with fright, but the noise had faded, so she relapsed into momentary stillness. Then she heard the ripple again, and this time it sounded like a whispered voice. But of course, no one could be up here at the top of the well-defended castle. Still, she had heard it, although it was so quiet and so tranquil that it barely made an impression. It reminded her of something. Yes, that same thing the rabbit's dewdrops had reminded her of earlier. She strained hard to listen for the sibilant sweetness once again. Pearl listened carefully, and she listened intently, but the voice had disappeared. Perhaps she had imagined it after all. Pearl let herself melt once again into the still restfulness of the night air, enjoying her momentary relaxation. She heard the whisper again. "What?" she wondered out loud. It said again, more urgently. Pearl sat up, but this time she kept breathing, feeling relaxed and quiet inside because the voice was familiar and somehow seemed so very kind. "Listen deeply." Pearl's eyes flew open, and now that she could hear clearly, she found that she could also see clearly. And what she saw was her own beautiful old friend, her precious star. All the lovely things the star had taught her came whooshing back into her mind, reminding her of all the sweetest moments she'd ever known. And as she remembered, Pearl began to listen deeply. Pearl listened and listened as if she could never get enough. She heard things that she had never known, and some she had forgotten. Loving wisdom that illuminated how she could skillfully apply the things she had learned about the everyday world. Understanding began to dawn as Pearl's star friend reminded her of how she could discern what was truly best for herself and for the people of her beloved kingdom. Pearl lay silently for a long time with her beautiful shining friend. Finally, she knew it was time to go. Tenderly, she turned to say goodbye to her beloved star, but it had already disappeared. She searched the constellations longingly, but saw only darkness. Pearl sighed sadly. She began to don her heavy costume, which seemed to have fallen away while she was relaxing and listening to the night sky. She twisted her features and braced her muscles to fit and support the torturous, burdensome mask. She stole one last lonely glance at her sky as the guise closed over her temples. And then she trudged slowly down the castle stairs. But Pearl felt strange inside. It was as if some bubbles were twinkling around inside her body. Pearl peered about, but no one was there. Strangely, her body felt light, and cool air seemed to be blowing through her golden curls. These unusual sensations made Pearl very nervous, so she reached into the splendid pockets of her perfect costume and pulled out her compact mirror to look into. Oh, she definitely looked strange. She was actually changing color. There was a rosy glow. And what was wrong with her mouth? The corners were turned oddly upward. She looked again. Why, whatever could be happening with her eyes? They had a peculiar incandescence, as if she was filled with some kind of lambent light. And her chest, could she be having a heart attack? And that was when she heard the most extraordinary sound and was shocked to realize that it was bursting through her own speechless mouth. It couldn't be. Pearl was laughing. Pearl gave in and just let herself laugh and laugh until her body collapsed like an overcooked Thai noodle, and her costume lay in an astonished heap beside her. At last, Pearl remembered the best thing about her luminescent friend Star. Even when bad things happened to her, the star never let her feel completely alone. Each time they listened to each other, she felt beloved and understood, while unexpected inspirations led her in what, sometimes very surprisingly, turned out to be the best direction. That's how she felt now, but her star was no longer here. How could this be true? Pearl thought back to the compact mirror, remembering the glow on her cheeks, the luminescence of her smile, the twinkle of her eyes. She reached up to touch her heart, and there, in the very center, she could feel her star beaming its joyous light, and Pearl realized that this beloved friend had never left her at all, and was indeed the best part of her own unique and precious self. Pearl smiled, and she decided then and there that she wanted to become very adept at listening deeply, so she could help her king, her prince, and all the people of the land learn how to enjoy this wondrous treasure. Because the star informed her that all beings have a special inside star of their very own, and it awakens the true nature that lives inside, so they can hear the wisdom of all the stars in the universe. Everyone has only to listen deeply to know their unique and extraordinary inside star, and to be guided into the amazing and unique exploration of their soul's journey here on earth. And so it is.